Hello, people of YouTube land and those that are part of the Cringe Crew Gaming Community Discord, those that follow Ted and I on Twitch, and those that are listening to this on Spotify and any other audio streaming platform that this is on. I am Traductus.
And I'm Ted.
And we are finally at the second to last episode of Werewolf Week for the Cringe Crew Gaming. I'm sorry, movie. Yeah, Cringe Crew Gaming movie review podcast. Sorry, I'm slightly intoxicated from last night. Scuffed. Yeah, Cringe Crew Gaming movie review podcast, and we are doing The Howling, which I will say this, a lot better movie than I remembered. Granted, I will say this, I remember it being good, but I didn't realize like how fucking good it was. um but anyway, The Howling released in 1981, March 13th, 1981 in the United States. Specifically, directed by Joe Dante. Also known for directing Gremlins, Gremlins 2, the new batch. He also directed 1978's Piranha, Inner Space, The Burbs, which features Tom Hanks. He also directed Small Soldiers.
Did he really? I love Small Soldiers.
Yeah, and also Looney Tunes Back in Action. And also the anthology series Monsters of Horror. And he also directed Amazing Stories as well as Police Squad and some episodes of Hawaii Five-0. So, like, this guy's done quite a bit. And he also directed a segment in The Twilight Zone. And I'm actually looking this up right fucking now, which part of The Twilight Zone that he... it's the segment It's a Good Life, which he actually shares directing credits in The Twilight Zone with somebody that we previously covered, John Landis, who directed the first segment in The Twilight Zone. He shares also the other two people that were in that were directing Twilight Zone the movie is Steven Spielberg, who did the segment Kick the Can, and then George Miller, who directed the Mad Max movies, also in there. I think he actually directed like Nightmare at Nightmare at 20,000 feet. But anyway, Joe Dante, definitely, someone that people are slightly fucking familiar with. Couple classics, especially Gremlins.
Especially Small Soldiers. Fuck you mean.
Yeah. Easily one of the best fucking films of the 90s. But anyway, we're on The Howling. For cast, we have for the main character, we have Dee Wallace as Karen White. Dee Wallace is best known as the mom in E.T. And we have Patrick McEnany as Dr. George Wagner. He was in the English television series The Avengers. And he also plays the sidekick. God damn it. I did not fucking plan this. He plays the James Bond's fucking sidekick in A View to a Kill.
God damn it, Stallman.
God
damn it, Stallman.
We also have Dennis Dungan as Chris Halloran, Chris Stone as Chris Stone as Karen's husband. Bill Neal, Elizabeth Brooks as Marcia Quist, Robert Picardo as Eddie Quist, Don McLeod as TC Quist. Also, John Carradine and Slim Pickens make an appearance. If you don't know who Slim Pickens was, he was Major Kong and Doctor Strangelove, which we've covered in a previous episode when we did Kubrick films. Obviously John Carradine from the famous Carradine movie family, which includes Keith Carradine and the late David Carradine. But anyway, while this film was made, the film was noted for its semi-humorous screenplay. It was adapted from a novel by Gary Brander, which was obviously titled The Howling. Gary Brander, enjoyed the movie, but was bummed out that the ending was changed. Spoiler, Karen does not become a werewolf at the end and lives. And also the husband doesn't die at the end either, so which sets up the events in the second book, which yes, this movie does have a sequel, but it has nothing to do with the book besides the title The Howling 2. There's also a third book, The Howling Echoes, which I think scenes in that were used in later adaptations of The Howling. Oddly enough, the fourth film in the series, The Howling 4, the original Nightmare, is actually closer to the novel than this movie, which is kind of funny to think oh yeah, the fourth film in the franchise is a remake of the first film.
That is bizarre.
Yeah, which has happened in other franchises as well, as in a later adaptation in the series is a remake of the first movie. Case in point, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4 is more or less a remake. It's a sequel, but it's more or less a remake of the first film. A shitty remake at that, but still. Which, by the way, I will say this with The Howling. The first one's the only good one. And yes, we are the next episode is going to be Howling 2 because I think it's as terrible as a movie it is, that it's a must-see because it's hysterically that bad. The rest of them, for what I've seen, range from wow, this would be good if they had a budget, because the screenplay is good, but it's badly acted and it has terrible special effects, to wow, this is a complete piece of shit. And there's fucking 8 of them.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Although, there has been talks of either a new sequel or a remake for Netflix, and there's been talks about that being around since May 2015, and apparently in 2020 director Andy Muschietti was hired to direct a remake for Netflix. So maybe that might happen. There's also a production of a comic book series entitled The Howling: Revenge of the Werewolf Queen. Began publication in May 2017, and it's a direct sequel to this film, ignoring every single sequel on this franchise. Throughout the production, let's see. There was several drafts by producer Jack Conway. Jack Conrad. who was going to direct this film, but he left following difficulties with the studio. And director, they picked up director Terrence H. Winkless, who directed The Band of Splits, Adventure Hour, and Power Rangers Zero, and the movie Blood Fists. He was proven unsatisfactory, so they hired Joe Dante, and then he also hired John Sayles, who directed not directed, but wrote movies for like Passion Fish and Lone Star. He directed him up to basically completely rewrite the script. The two had collaborated before with the 1978 film Piranha, and then like we said, the cast, had recognizable character actors such as John Carradine and Slim Pickens, also including Kevin McCarthy and Kenneth Tobey. Even like director Roger Corman makes a cameo appearance in this as a man who stands outside a phone booth, and as a callback to Roger Corman, there is, and also when it comes to Gremlins, Dick Miller makes an appearance, and he's known for various appearances in Roger Corman films. He's also in Small Soldiers, but he's probably best known for playing Murray Futterman in Gremlins 1 and Gremlins 2. But I will say this, for like the directors, when we do like a director series, we are not going to do Roger Corman, because if we did like, a Roger Corman, like, yeah, we're gonna direct everything that we're gonna go over everything that Roger Corman did. We'd be here from like 80 years from now for how many films like he just fucking churns out. But maybe next year we'll try to cover something from Roger Corman for like Halloween, because like he is someone that, definitely gave like a lot of actors and directors their big break, including, people like Jack Nicholson and Francis Ford Coppola. That being said, the special effects were done by Rob Bottin. Originally, the effects were going to be done by Richard Baker, and he did some of them, but Rick Baker, left the production of this film to do An American Werewolf in London, which was released the same year. So we have, two werewolf movies with awesome special effects the same year. And then there hasn't been a good werewolf movie ever fucking since, in my opinion. Although I hear there's one that came out somewhat recently that's actually not bad. But I haven't seen it, so therefore, in my worldview, there hasn't been a werewolf movie that's been good since 1981. Which honestly kind of says something. So anyway, I guess we'll go into likes and dislikes, and also the plot, Ted.
The plot is it's a werewolf movie. Let's move to likes and dislikes.
I mean, if you want me to actually go into more detail.
I mean, I feel like a werewolf movie is a werewolf movie. This is pretty cut and dry a werewolf movie.
Right. I will say this. News lady catches a serial killer. Spoiler alert, the serial killer is a werewolf, which, you'd probably knew since the movie's called The Howling, and if you watch the fucking trailer, there's werewolves in it, and she goes to her therapist is like, hey, go to this colony. It's spoiler alert. the entire colony is all fucking werewolves, and the plan is to turn her and her husband into fucking werewolves, although, some of the patients are, relatives of the serial killer who have alternative motives of, like, fucking just specifically killing her.
It's a werewolf movie.
Yeah.
Why don't you start with likes, Stalin?
Oh, you have more dislikes than likes?
No, I just you'd send it. Start with
All
likes.
All right. Special effects, 100%. Like, going back, I'm eating my words of saying, like, objectively speaking, that American Werewolf in London is the best werewolf movie. This beats it. 100%. Like, the special effects are done for the same year, are done a hell of a lot fucking better. Like, the werewolf transition scenes are amazing. The werewolf, sans the fact that the ears of the werewolves are a little bit too fucking big, are fucking perfect. 100% freaking perfect. I haven't like, for practical effects, I haven't seen anything done better.
I have to agree.
Anything done better.
I did make fun of it while it was happening that it took 7 fucking minutes of movie to actually do the transformation. But in the grand scheme of things, like, I think the effects were significantly better. It was much easier to believe and follow along. Like, I think it was really well done. It just took too fucking long.
Right. I also like that the plot isn't necessarily a stereotypical werewolf movie. Like, typically, like, when it comes with a werewolf movie, it's usually like, you follow the person that's becoming a werewolf, and then how, like, they cope with being a werewolf, and, cope with the fact that, they're killing people. With this, it's, someone that, you're following people that are, it's kind of like Silver Bullet. You're experiencing the person that, is fighting the werewolf.
It makes an easier protagonist. You're not following along the werewolf. It makes an easier protagonist to follow the people being victimized. Like, it's pretty cool.
Right. And with this, like, despite it being called the Howling, you could easily, kind of depict. There's several parts of this movie that, before they actually show werewolves, that you could actually be like, maybe there isn't a werewolf in this. Maybe it's like a more of like a psychological piece where it's her experiencing PTSD for, like, being attacked by a serial killer, and maybe she's like distorting events because, like, she can't remember, like, the event specifically. She just knows that she's traumatized by it, and I think that's actually kind of interesting, and then the werewolves happen, and it's like, wow, I could see why she was, like, totally freaked out about shit. Another thing, I like the fact that, despite there's still kind of a twist in this movie. Like, you expect there to be werewolves in the movie, but you don't expect, like, the entire, like, I guess, for a lack of a better statement of what the colony is, a 12-step program cult vacation area for werewolves.
Okay.
Is that a good description?
It's not bad. It's weird, but it's not bad.
But, like, you didn't expect, like, the entire, like, therapy group to be all werewolves. You expect certain people, and then, like, the serial killer to come back and terrorize the protagonist, but you didn't expect, like, the entire thing. And I like how, like, different werewolves on this island have, like, different motivations with the protagonist and her friends, because, like, you have, like, the doctor who's, like, goal is a tad vague. Like, I don't know if, like, they sort of explain it, but kind of don't, which I'll go into dislikes when we get to dislikes. But, like, his motivations are either, like, he feels bad for Karen, and he thinks, like, having her join this werewolf cult might help her So he wants to like turn her and her husband, or he's like trying to cover up the fact that one of his patients, Eddie Quist, like, went on a murderous rampage outside of the colonies. So therefore, he wants to kind of like, see what Karen knows. And depending on if she knows too much, convert Karen and her husband. And then on the other side, you have the Quist family with, Eddie Quist being the serial killer and him getting injured. Although you see him kind of, at the beginning of the film, you assume he's dead, but, he's not dead because he's a werewolf and didn't get shot with a silver bullet. Later on, does get shot with a silver bullet. Like, their motivations are straight up, kill Karen. Because, like, she injured her fucking family. I also like the fact that they have animosity with the doctor, as in, like, with, like, how the therapy thing's going, because they're at the point of view, like, no, let's accept that we're fucking werewolves and just, like, eat people. Why should we, like, suppress our, what we are, and, try to, like, integrate with society? And part of me kind of wonders, like, was Eddie supposed to be, like, like, was he, like, the star pupil and supposed to be an example of, like, hey, we can actually integrate in society, and it was, like, a complete failure? Or, like, from the get-go, Eddie's just a fucking psychopath, and then, fake that he was, okay to go into normal society and just, like, rapes and murders women in a werewolf form. Like, either or could, be a thing. But at the same time, I love, like, there's, like, multiple motives for, like, the main, like, I guess antagonists in this movie, because there are, like, a couple, like, there's two antagonist factions in this. Which, by the way, with, Eddie Quist's sister, I like the fact that she just goes, like, total, like, spiteful woman, as in, like, oh, not only am I going to, mutilate and kill you as a werewolf, I'm literally going to turn your husband and steal him from you and have my family kill your friend and then, just basically ruin your goddamn life before I kill you. It's a very, very goddamn, sinister thing. And I also like the fact that I was like in American Werewolf in London, it's kind of funny how, like, they kept, like, certain tropes such as the full moon and then threw away with the silver bullet. And then in other werewolf movies that we've seen with silver bullet, the person becomes a werewolf at night no matter what. With assuming, not the new moon, because, it was like, every time, like, the moon gets fuller, the, man gets wolf here. And then in the Wolf Man, it's, just during the autumn season. In this, the werewolves change at will. Like, they are, normal humans, and if they want to be a werewolf, they fucking turn into a werewolf. And you can only kill them with a silver bullet and fire. It honestly makes it a little bit more terrifying because, like, they can turn at will. They are very, very fucking in control of what they do. And they're all basically, for the most part, sadistically fucking evil. Like, especially, like, a prime example with Bill when he gets turned into a werewolf. Like, before he's kind of like a loving husband that cares for his wife. And then when he becomes a werewolf, like, his personality totally changes. Like, he becomes like an abusive fucking asshole that just, like, is totally cool with, like, cheating on his fucking wife. And so it's like it's like being like more of like a I guess kind of a lack of a better word, infected with, like, being a werewolf. Like, it just triggers your inner darkest fucking thoughts. like, that just comes out. It's kind of like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where you being a werewolf is like the Mr. Hyde comes out. But it's honestly a lot more terrifying, as in, like, they can turn to a werewolf at will at any point and just fucking mutilate someone. And unlike with American Werewolf in London, they cannot be killed with conventional weapons. It has to be with fucking silver or fire. And, it makes it a lot more of, like, a harder problem to get rid of. And I love how, like, fucking Dick Miller who plays this guy that owns, like, a library. He's like, yeah, they're like fucking cockroaches, like, and they're really hard to kill. It just makes the situation a lot dire. So I'll give it back to you, Ted, if you have any other.
What a soliloquy. Yeah, listen, my plus sides for this movie were that it was really simple. In the grand scheme of things, like, I think that everything in it made sense. Like, you were mentioning the colony of werewolves there, 9 minutes ago. And I think that, like, that makes sense, right? Like, you'd be with, like, people, right? Or, like, creatures, I guess. And I think that, like, when a werewolf turns you into a werewolf, it doesn't make sense to just have a movie with only one werewolf. Like, I think that they conceptualize it in an intelligent way. And it's just really easy to follow along. My other thing that I enjoyed about this movie was that it kind of played out like a slasher. Like, yes, there was plot, like, and I get it, but I mean, the grand scheme of things, the entertaining parts of the movie, the, like, parts that are most enjoyable, the most notable, are just werewolf kills things, it's brutal, it's gruesome, it's murder. Like that, and it's really, really simple. And
it's honestly a lot more well done as a slasher than Silver Bullet.
Yeah, I
don't know.
You don't have to follow a plot. You don't have to, like, put all that much effort into it. The plot that's there is pretty simple because it's built around werewolf commits murder.
Especially since, like, this movie's actually generally fucking creepy. Like, like, that literally helps, It's not like Silver Bullet where, like, there's a couple creepy moments and then the rest of it's, like, pure fucking camp. Like, this movie is actually, like, generally kind of creeps you out.
Yeah.
But, like, how like the different actors, like, interact with each other. Especially the guy that plays Eddie Quist, who's basically, like, a fucking creepy, sadistic, rapist werewolf.
Yeah. I think to transition then into dislikes, a lot of this movie that wasn't slashery felt really dry. In the same way that I like it that it's simple, I hate that there's not filler. There's a whole lot of this movie that you can skip and ignore and you won't actually miss any movie. It's not a long movie. It doesn't drag. It's not like, man, we've been watching this for 6 hours and we're only 45 minutes in.
Thank God it wasn't directed by Stanley Kubrick.
But it does, like, there is a whole lot of it that just kind of feels flat. And it does not come in bite-sized chewable pieces. It comes as one big brick.
Right. And the thing is, like, this movie's only like an hour and a half. And I appreciate that it's only an hour and a half, but at the same time, like, there's parts in this movie that, where the plot is semi-fleshed out. And, like, they give you enough information where it's like, okay, this is kind of gonna lead to something, this is interesting, and they kind of do nothing with it. As in, like, the doctor's motivations, like, is he, trying to cover up the fact that werewolves exist to protect, like, like, his colony of werewolves, and then his entire thing is, like, a cover-up to, turn, Karen and her husband into werewolves? Or is he genuinely trying to help? Like, that's, like, given hints of either situation, but you're never given an answer. When it comes to, like, the colony itself, is this actually, like, a self-help therapy thing? Or is this just, like, a retreat for fucking werewolves, you know? Like, there's, you know, there's numerous things where it's like different characters have different motivations for things, and then it's like never fully explained. And like it's half explained, and to me it's like had they put a not so much a little bit more effort into it, but like it's either, and I'm not saying like spoon things to us, but like they give us enough information where it's like give us an answer or like don't have it in the movie at all.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of that, and also like there's parts of this that because of similar like so to what you just said, as well as there are points that take too long, like the transformation. There's points where it's just kind of like they're feeding it because they think it looks good, but it also suspends disbelief, or it doesn't allow you to suspend disbelief. Like the idea that you would sit still laying on the floor screaming for 8 minutes while the transformation happens, like, okay, this is clearly taking some time. You could like hijack a car and drive 2 miles before he fully finishes his transformation and moves again. But you just sat there and waited to die. Like,
yeah,
I think there are a lot of points that makes it really hard to find it, to give you a buy-in into the film, even if it's cool as a slasher.
Yeah, and even like the special effects are really good. Like even like if you cut like I don't know like 5 minutes out of the transition, like you could still get the same effect. Yeah. And it's as creepy and scary as gross as American Werewolf in London, but like obviously done a lot better because like this tone's more consistent. You know, you don't really have like comedy undercutting, the horror elements of this movie. But another dislike I have is that the werewolves look so good, but the ears of the werewolves, they need to be like shorter by like at least 6 inches. Cause like our friend Mike Riot, who was a guest at the Moonraker episode for the James Bond podcast, said, "Oh my god, the were bunnies." And when we heard that, honestly, kind of like made us not take the werewolf serious at all. Like, fuck at all, because we're like, oh yeah, the were bunnies. Because they do look like fucking rabbits at that point. Well, if you ignore the fucking giant ears, they look very wolf-like, and it's superb. But the giant ears, were bunnies. And there's also a scene where they use stop motion for whatever goddamn reason, and it's like like way out of place. Like, because you had like these great special effects, you have like a great werewolf costumes, and then all of a sudden for like one scene you decide to use stop motion, and it's very, very obvious stop motion.
It was pretty jarring.
It's not like the Evil Dead where the stop motion actually like how like they intercut it. It actually looks really, really good. Like the stop motion sequence that's there, which is like for like 2 seconds, it's done rather poorly. Like Jason and the Argonauts are Revenge of the Titans poorly. And that kind of takes you out of the movie. Other than that, I really don't have many other dislikes. Do you have any?
Not really. It was a pretty standard like combination between a werewolf film and a slasher film, and I think that really, like, I hate to boil it down to just be a simple sentence, but in the grand scheme of things, it kind of was. It was a pretty easy, digestible movie.
Would you say this is probably like the best werewolf movie that we saw out of the entire thing?
I don't think it was the most enjoyable werewolf movie to watch. Right? Like, I think
Gary Busey's not in it.
Well, no, I genuinely think that Silver Bullet had like the grip of you want to watch this movie once you've started it. But I think that, like, as far as being a werewolf film, I mean, it's probably this one. Right. Like, all of the elements of being a werewolf, this is probably the top of the chart.
Yeah, I will say this. I do enjoy Silver Bullet more just because of how camp it is. But the sequel to The Howling is my favorite werewolf movie. I know, like, people who have seen The Howling 2 and know how dog shit it is and how much they fuck it up, it's probably cringing at me because they're like, that movie's terrible. That's why it's my favorite werewolf movie, because I get so much enjoyment out of it. Like, going into this, I was like, essential must see werewolf movies. I was going into this as the impression like the only reason why to watch this is because it's actually a good werewolf movie that you don't need the ending spoiled with the sequel. But the sequel is a must see movie for how terrible it is. But going back and watching this, I would say on its own right, even if the sequel was like, like so bad where it's like not like enjoyably bad, like it's just like, yeah, it's terrible, but who gives a fuck? Um I would say this is still a must see, werewolf movie if you want to get into werewolf movies just because of how well done like it's put together. And which honestly kind of makes sense because like out of the movies that Joe Dante's directed, more or less they're all pretty damn good with like Gremlins 2, and of course Small Soldiers.
Yeah, of course, Small Soldiers.
Um but yeah, that being said, nothing else to add. Next episode's gonna be the Howling 2, which I am can't wait to see Ted's reaction to it because
Man,
that's gonna be fucking great.
I have a feeling it's going to be an angry podcast.
I
Anyway,
will tell you. I'm telling you this, Ted. I will tell you this much. The reason why it's my favorite is because I get the most fucking enjoyment out of it for how awful it is. If you ever like see movies that are so awful that you enjoy them for how awful they are.
okay. Well, anyway, I think that wraps us up here. Nothing left to say on this one. Probably talked too much, honestly.
Yeah.
As always, you can hop in the Discord. It'll be linked below. You can watch movies with us. We typically watch on Tuesdays, but depending on when this comes out and how many movies we have left by this time, if any, we'll also be watching on some Saturdays. There's all kinds of community events and giveaways and games and shit, and you can just join the Discord, okay? If you're interested in more of our content, you can also catch us both on Twitch, Stallman at Traductus and myself at Ted Green Eagles. And with that, we'll see you here tomorrow for the sequel to this movie, Howling 2. Thanks, guys. Adios.
Yep. Later.